Our mission is simple. It's not to touch one part of the returns ecosystem. It's to solve the problem of returns. So in 2020, some of the biggest trends in returns is obviously COVID. COVID has been one of the most fundamental changers of how consumers behave and buy product. They stopped shopping in store for a while, and there was a really long period where in-store sales fell, but online sales really went up. So although the US economy shrank in 2020 by around 3.5%, online sales went up. Holiday sales, online sales were up by about 20%. Year-over-year sales were up by around 9%. So I mean, they're not one and the same in terms of economy size and the contraction of the economy and what people are purchasing. The shift to online was definitely propelled by COVID, and for sure the returns were propelled. What we noticed, and I think one of the biggest things that we noticed, was that people were buying more product online and of course returning more product online. I think that the big thing, the big change is the overstock inventory. There's a ton of inventory, distressed and overstock inventory within the network today that wouldn't normally have been there, of product that consumers just didn't buy. During the spring, normally there's a lot of clothing that gets sold, a lot of apparel, a lot of that kind of inventory that people weren't buying because they weren't going out. So they were electing not to purchase this product. It's still sitting and still has to be written off for a lot of these retailers. And I suggest that retailers start thinking of ways to liquidate or put those items into market earlier, sooner than later. So I think the fact that people started purchasing more refurbished or reconditioned or sanitized items now compared to maybe a few years back, first of all, they're becoming more comfortable with the process of refurbished items, but it's also about stock during COVID. There are a lot of things like bicycles that people just ran out of. The whole world decided to start biking during the pandemic. Exercise equipment, everyone decided that they're going to get fit during the pandemic. So people went to these big box retailers and bought out pretty much everything they had on the shelves. As these items became less and less available in the market, people turned to refurbished items. This is amazing for refurbished items, of course, because it lets people understand that refurbished items are not the enemy. They're not these awful items that are junkyard, scratch and dent kind of products, but they're renewed, and the amount of effort that people put into refurbished items, the right refurbishers, can in fact be better condition than even the new one. The younger generation that exists out there is more open to reusing an item and buying a used item in order to prevent someone from having to manufacture another one on their behalf. And I think that's also a contributor to this amazing kind of inclination towards purchasing secondhand refurbished product. I think the most exciting thing about e-commerce returns is that people are aware of the impact that their returns are making. And for the first time, the consumer actually understands, wait a minute, I'm buying 5 of the same shirt. I'm buying 3 of the same piece of furniture or some random accessory, some case for my phone. I need to rethink this because it's not sustainable for me to receive 3 or 10 or 5 of the exact same item with the expectation of just keeping one. This practice, this bracketing practice, is awful for the environment. It's awful for retail. It's awful for the vendors that sell the product, the retailers that sell, and it's bad for the consumer ultimately because it increases the price of the product. Whatever happens with that product after you touch it, you may think that it's easy to put that item back into the supply chain, but it never is. What happened this year is people became aware of that. And I think it's really important because one of the best things we can do as a company, as a people, is lower that amount of returns. Provide the data, that knowledge, the software, that business intelligence to the outside world and show them the impact that their returns are having, not only to the big boxes and the vendors and the manufacturers that sell this product, but also to the consumer, to let them lessen the impact of their purchases on the rest of the planet. In order for a retailer to have a really strong, fully encompassing return solution, they have to allow their consumer to return anything, anywhere. And I think that's a very big trend that we're going to see over the next year to 5 years. That technology, that infrastructure has to be built out. That ability to credit a customer that walked in from one store in your store and be able to let them use those dollars to purchase your merchandise is extremely important to your bottom line. Our mission is simple. It's not to touch one part of the returns ecosystem. It's to solve the problem of returns. And that is kind of the motto, and that's our mission, and that's what we do. We solve returns problems.